Hello and good evening. Welcome to today's edition of You and the Economy. Maize, also commonly known as corn, is a popular agricultural commodity in Nigeria, which is its largest producer in Africa. Maize is much sought after in the country because it is a major staple food of millions of Nigerians. When it is not eaten boiled or roasted, it is processed into porridge known as pap, which is widely consumed in many homes in the country. A soft swallow food is also prepared with maize. In addition, its derivatives such as starch and sweeteners are widely used in the manufacturing sector, where they are applied as additives to produce a wide variety of products. The cultivation of maize is also a common vocation among Nigeria's teeming population of farmers, especially the smallholder cadre, who cultivate farms of between 0.5 and 2 hectares of land size, thus providing job opportunities and a source of livelihood to millions of Nigerians. Curiously, even as Nigeria is a major producer of maize, it is an irony that prior to late 2015, when a deliberate effort was initiated to boost the output of the commodity, Nigeria had been a net importer of maize. This is in spite of our immense endowments in maize cultivation. As would be expected, Nigeria's status as a net importer of maize and its derivatives impacted adversely on her foreign reserves position, a development that the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, could not be indifferent to. As a result, in the discharge of the developmental and price stability components of its core mandates, the Apex Bank decided to intervene in the maize value chain using its Anchor Borers program as key vehicle to drive the intervention. And the CBN intervention in the maize value chain has been a huge success story. From being a net importer of maize, Nigeria is now on the threshold of being a net exporter of the commodity. On today's edition of the program, we take a look at the maize value chain. The episode will highlight how the intervention of the CBN in the value chain reversed Nigeria's status as a net importer of maize by identifying the defining measures taken to turn the situation around and the significant benefits of the success of the intervention for the Nigerian economy. Happy viewing.
The CBN has done so well in advancing credits to the farmers, through the association, and the support of the commercial banks.
We're not only bridging the gap, we're looking at how we can begin to produce more for exports.
Now there is self-sufficient of maize in Nigeria.
Kudos must go to Governor Emefiele for driving that through the Anchor Bora program and encouraging that.
When in 2019, the Central Bank of Nigeria decided to intervene in a holistic manner in the maize value chain in the country, the total supply of maize per annum was a little over 12 million metric tons. Available records on total domestic consumption or demand per annum had varied between 16.5 million to 20 million metric tons, with the Maize Association of Nigeria, MAN, going with a figure of 20 million metric tons. Whichever of the two figures is used as benchmark for total annual consumption and demand, one thing had remained clear. The gap between total demand and total supply stood at a deficit of not less than 4.5 million metric tons per annum, and possibly about 8 million metric tons per annum. In the records of MAN, were to be used as benchmark. It was no surprise, therefore, that the core objective of the intervention of the CBN in the maize value chain is to boost outputs in exponential proportions annually, with a view to promoting self-sufficiency in maize production and thus eliminate the demand and supply gap deficit. Other objectives of the intervention of the CBN in the maize value chain are job creation, enhancing the skills of Nigerians in the production of maize as an agricultural commodity, and to facilitate easier access to funding for those engaged in maize cultivation and processing. As it is with almost all facets of human endeavor, access to funding is critical to drive change and in turning adverse situations around for the better. Indeed, no matter how smart a vision is, its chances of succeeding stand imperiled if there is no access to funds to drive the realization of its goals and objectives. This was why the Central Bank of Nigeria, in driving the realization of its core objective of increasing output and erasing the existing demand and supply deficit through its intervention in the maize value chain, had focused strongly on providing avenues to maize farmers to access funds to cultivate their farms and ramp up the production of the commodity. To achieve this goal, the CBN developed a financial framework that grants smallholder maize farmers, who are the mainstay of the production of maize, easier access to concessionary loans at low interest rate and thus encourage them to increase their stake in the cultivation of the commodity. One of the measures adopted by the CBN to achieve this objective is the Anchor Borrowers Program, ABP. The ABP was launched earlier in November 2015 by President Muhammadu Buhari, and the CBN had been using the program ever since as vehicle to drive the funding of the agricultural revolution it set in motion in the country through its assistance to smallholder farmers across various commodity value chains. Further access to funding was facilitated by the CBN through other financial schemes, which are either adjunct of the ABP or independent of it. These other schemes of the CBN include the Commercial Agriculture Credit Scheme (CACS) and the Agri-Business Small and Medium Enterprise Investment Scheme (AXMIS), which accommodates the interest of millers, processors, and medium and large-scale farmers by also granting them access to finance at reasonable interest rates, as the Apex Bank had done for smallholder farmers through the ABP. The massive transformation recorded in the maize value chain, therefore, owes its origin in part to the increased access to cheap funding, which the CBN granted to all cadres of farmers as well as millers in the maize value chain.
The central bank has released various guidelines, various interventions windows to address the entire maize value chain. So for primary production of maize, we have the Anchor Borrower Program, because cultivation is a short cycle, typically between 90 and 120 days. So the Anchor Borrower Program addresses that. For processing, you will have what you call the Commercial Agri Credit Scheme. So you might want to do a meal to be able to process the maize. You will go through the Commercial Agri Credit Scheme. So it's a mid-term window, so between 18 months and 5 years. So you take a loan and you pay back after maybe 3 to 5 years. Establish the mill, put it in place, take inputs from the Anchor Borrower Program or other farmers, and then you can mill the maize. We also want to have what we call the NESF, which is for export. So if you want to export to neighboring countries, the processed or finished goods from the primary cultivation of the maize, you can access that window, and then you can export and then repatriate the proceeds.
To hasten the realization of the dramatic turnaround it sought to achieve in the maize value chain through improved funding, by using the instrumentality of some of its ad hoc schemes to achieve that objective, The CBN also deployed its wholly owned non-bank financial institution, Nigerian Microfinance Bank, Nigerian MFB, for the same objective. Chinaemerem Joseph, Director, Development Finance Department of the CBN, the department tasked with superintending the interventions of the bank in stimulating sectors of the economy, explains how and why Nigerian MFB was adopted as channel to transform the maize value chain and the remarkable results the move has yielded.
As at last count, we've funded over 300,000 farmers through the Nigerian Microfinance Bank. The advantage Nigerian Microfinance Bank gives is that it's very close to the farmer. So we have branches, they have branches. As at last count, they have over 106 branches in post offices across the local government areas. So if you look at the commercial banks, who typically, are large banks, might not have presence in places, remote places, either in the northeast, in the northwest, or in the south part of the country. But the NMFB, has branches so closer to the farmers can walk into these branches, can speak the talk of the employees there, and can access either a small business loan, maybe Maize, the targeted credit facility, or the Anchor Borrower program if they belong to a cooperative or they belong to one of the associations. And a lot of farmers have been very innovative. So instead of waiting for the Anchor Borrower program, they might collect the targeted credit facility, maybe 10, 12 of them, pool the money together, like some of them did in Kwara, did rice cultivation, and had good yields, and they were able to repay the loan. So NMFB plays a key role in being very close to the customer, understanding the customer needs, and being positioned for us to be able to use them to disburse to these farmers.
Still on the role of improved access to concessionary funding in turning around the fortunes of the maize value chain, it is noteworthy that core stakeholders have been collaborating with the CBN to further facilitate easier access to funds at friendly interest rate to reinforce the successes recorded in the transformation of the value chain through the CBN's financial framework. This gesture has gained considerable traction among relevant commodity associations. Professor Edwin Uche is the National President of Maize Growers, Processors and Marketers Association, MACPAMAN. He speaks on how the association has been complementing the efforts of the CBN to make access to funding easier for maize farmers and ramp up maize production output.
We're trying to raise the awareness of our farmers to understand there are many ways of accessing finance. And we're also trying to engage them on rural financial engineering. Then as an association, we're engaging development banks, we're engaging commercial banks, we're engaging government, we're engaging the CBN. We are constantly engaging these institutions to be able to deepen engagement as it has to do with access to finance.
One of the time-honored ways of boosting the output of agricultural crops to complement improved access to funds is by equally providing farmers improved access to high-yield seeds. That process is what was captured in this footage, where oil palm farmers are presented with high-yield seeds at subsidized price by the Nigerian Institute for Oil Palm Research, NIFO, in Benin, capital of Edo State. Maize production had come to a sorry pass in Nigeria because, quite unlike the practice in other major maize-producing nations of the world, output per hectare of land cultivated in the country had been very low. To complement the attractive financial framework it developed for raising output of maize production, the CBN arranged with a set of specialized stakeholders comprising agricultural research institutions, seeds companies, and some universities with bias for agriculture to intensify efforts in developing high-yield seeds that will boost output per hectare in maize production in the country. This measure also accounts for the significant improvements recorded lately in the profile of the output of maize production in the country.
key is improving productivity using the same land for maize. We're doing between 1.82 tons, 2 metric tons per hectare. As at today, we're doing on average between 4 and 5 tons per hectare. That's a significant jump. We're looking at how we can expand that to between 7 and 8 tons per hectare. We've seen countries in Bangladesh and also in Europe that you do 10 tons per hectare. So we're working with the relevant authorities to look at how we can bring in those seeds. The Agricultural Research Institute in Kaduna has released a variety that can do 8 tons per hectare. How do we ensure that we can multiply those seeds and those seeds become available to our farmers so that they can improve productivity, meet and exceed the national demand, begin to export, and also improve farmer incomes?
The central bank have been partnering with lots and lots of research institutes in Nigeria to increase the yield capacity of some of these maize from 3-4 tons to 7-8 tons per hectare. And I can tell you, the result has been wonderful. The research institutes are now resting. CBN is working and engaging them. Commodity associations are also having a lot of meetings with them. We are engaging them, providing sites for practical evaluation of the outputs from the laboratory, for field tests, and examinations. And so we are partnering with them. We're working very closely with these institutions, and the CBN is doing a lot to ensure that some of these institutions support the federal government's drive to achieve food security by helping develop seeds that can increase yield and others.
Oshone Anave is Vice President, Operations, Thrive Agric Limited, one of the stakeholders that the CBN is collaborating with in the implementation of its interventions in the agricultural commodity sector.
We need to work with maybe more with seed companies as well, produce more improved varieties of seeds that can, outside, Nigeria, outside Africa, mostly you see seeds that can produce 12 tons, per hectare, seeds that can produce about 2 tons per hectare, seeds that can produce about 1.5 tons per hectare, seeds that can produce 1 ton per hectare. I mean, I've heard of different stories like that, right? So, but here we just produced maybe 0.2, 0.3 tons per hectare. So I think we can do more.
The strategy adopted by the CBN to turn around the maize value chain within a relatively short time also embraced collaboration with river basin development authorities. In recognition of the important role played by seamless access to water in cultivating maize and knowing that rainfall, which many farmers usually rely on solely to cultivate their crops, is not experienced all year round, the CBN co-opted RBDAs in driving the success of its intervention in the maize value chain. The goal of the initiative was to make maize cultivation less reliant on rain by utilizing the vast water resources of the RBDAs to nurture maize farms and put farmers in a position to grow the commodity all year round. The reasoning is that if maize can be cultivated throughout the year, that is both in the wet and dry seasons, output will most likely increase exponentially. In addition to utilizing their immense water resources, the extensive swathes of land under the purview of RBDAs were also to be used to cultivate maize under the arrangement. This strategy is expected to pay off handsomely, thus further ramping up output of maize production in the country.
Most of the primary production in Nigeria is rain-fed. We're looking at how we can push the boundaries, working with Ministry of Water Resources for irrigation-fed agriculture, especially during the dry season. We've been working with the Ministry of Water Resources for the last 2 years. We realized that the funding requirements are huge. A lot of the river basin authorities have been neglected over time. But we're looking at how we can look at low-hanging fruits, short-term intervention, and also look at how we can, bring in more commercial players, on the back of the funding that we'll provide to come and work with the various river basin authorities to unlock more land and put in the infrastructure required. We've had series of meetings, drawn up a plan, and we look forward to, executing the short-term imperative that we've put in place. Of course, working with private sector players that would lease this land, will give them long-term debt under the private sector-led accelerated agricultural development scheme, and then they can put in the infrastructure required on board farmers, and then we can scale up our dry season irrigation type farming.
The partnership, that robust engagement with the River Basin Authority have also helped to grow and support. They have helped to grow a lot of grain, within the year. Their constant support to the program has also made it possible for us to be able to achieve a greater percentage of our output in terms of conservation all year round. So we must commend them for that partnership. We must commend the CBN for that engagement. And I think it's an engagement worth sustaining. And as an association, we are proud to be part of that, and we'll always keep supporting it.
The report and claims that speak to the success of the various interventions of the CBN in the maize value chain are credible, as they are based on empirical facts and verifiable images. It is a testament to the impressive successes recorded in the intervention of the CBN in the maize value chain that pyramids of the agricultural commodity are becoming a common sight in the maize growing centers of the country, evoking memories of the days of old when pyramids of agricultural commodities spoke to the commanding height occupied by the agricultural sector in the Nigerian economy. In fact, on May 7, 2021, the first ever maize pyramids to be displayed in the history of agricultural commodities in Nigeria were unveiled in the ancient city of Katsina, capital of Katsina State. Less than 1 year after the Katsina events, precisely on Thursday, November 24, 2022, another display of maize pyramids was held, this time in Kaduna, capital of Kaduna State, which is reputed to be the largest producer of maize in the country. On this latter occasion, the number of maize pyramids unveiled was much larger. The events in Katsina and Kaduna underscored the remarkable successes recorded in the CBN intervention in the maize value chain, as the sheer volume of maize grains on display attest to.
Now there is a self-sufficient of maize in Nigeria, because the total number of tons of maize that is needed from the maize millers in Nigeria is about 16 million tons, while the other one for the domestic use and the other maize processing companies is only 4 million tons. So as at last year we produced 20 million tons, which means that we have now satisfied the demand of all the maize millers and other human consumption.
We can produce enough maize, right, and not import. First of all, that already impacts the economy in terms of forex. The more you reduce importation, the more your naira and the value of your currency gets better. So that will definitely have a way to boost the economy. So year in, year out, you see farmers who were smaller than what they were before, now are producing even more. It means that it's more yield for them, it's more money in their pockets in terms of poverty, in terms of just access to more income, right? Increasing their incomes, providing markets for these farmers. So if you look at it from that angle and you're increasing my income as a person, you're definitely helping the economy, because you have people who now can, live a bit above the poverty line, or at least getting close to living above the poverty line.
And with that, we come to the end of today's edition of You and the Economy. Please to join us again, same time next week, when we bring you another interesting episode of You and the Economy. Until then, it's goodbye.